The Wednesday, January 18th, 2017, regular business meeting of the Pasadena Area Community College District will come to order. We have convened in closed session and have no reportable action. Can we have a roll call, please? Okay.
For the open session? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. Trustee Osterling, will you lead us in the pledge, please?
Please stand and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the approval and reordering of agenda items. Do any trustees have any suggestions, recommendations for changes in the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Introductions and recognitions.
We will recognize Trustee Hua for her service as President of the Board for the 2016 year.
Thank you.
Yes, Trustee Hua, will you please join me at the speakers?
Oh my gosh. I thought you were just going to get me some cake. I forgot you guys.
Right. In recognition of Trustee Hua's outstanding service as President of the Board of Trustees last year, we'd like to present you with this plaque, and I guess, well, if you can detach that, you can bang away at it at home. But we'd like to express our appreciation for being President during a pretty challenging year. We had the revisit from the Accreditation Commission, and we're all optimistic that things are going to turn out well. And a lot of other stuff. So congratulations, and thank you for your service.
Thank you. Well, this is quite a surprise and quite an honor, but I have to say that, nothing is possible without having great colleagues and great board that we have and a great superintendent. So thank you very much. My pleasure. It is.
Do we have, Trustee Osterling, do we have any public comment on the non-agenda items?
We have two public comments, and we will start with Martin Enriquez. And I will give you a little 30-second warning.
Thank you.
You're on the clock, sir.
Honorable trustees and assembled persons, Happy New Year. Today I bring 3 data sets. The first is the demographic information within Pasadena Unified School District elementary attendance areas in the Chicano, Hispano, Indigenous, Latino American concentrations in 9 elementary schools with data from prior to 2010. Elementary schools are Madison at 96.8% Cho Americans, 2, Washington at 85.9, Jefferson Elementary School at 84.4, Roosevelt 74.8, Franklin 73.9, Jackson 73.5, Cleveland 73.5, Longfellow 66.3, Willard 65%. The second map, that was the first, I've already handed this to Ms. Thompson. The second map is the school districts in and around the Pasadena area community college districts. Those in red are not part of the Voting Rights Act for Alta Pasadena Spanish-speaking community of interest within Pasadena area Unified School District. Potential additional areas are the San Gabriel and El Monte Union, particularly Rosemead and El Monte areas. The third map was produced by redistricting partners of the communities within PACCD. And they're Pasadena, 34% Latino, Altadena, 27%, North El Monte in excess of 80%, East San Gabriel, 25%, South Pasadena, 19% Latino, Sierra Madre, 15% Latino, Arcadia, 12%, La Cañada, Flint Ridge, 6%, mostly concentrated around the 210 freeway Chicano Hispano Latino corridor that I identified in 1991. Thank you for the chimes on New Year's Day. Thank you for the benches in the C building. It's much nicer to see them sitting down than sprawled out on the floor. Thank you.
I have a procedural question, Ms. Thompson. Mr. Enriquez has provided the board with some materials. Is that going to be copied and distributed to the trustees? Well, this is non-agenda item stuff, but is it going to be given to us?
I did hand it to Ms. Thompson,
Yeah.
and I'll email you because I don't like the quality of the
Thank you.
copies.
Thank you.
Our next public comment is from Ms. Margaret Castro, and I'll also give you a 30-second warning.
Good evening, board members and audience. The reason why I'm coming here today is because we still have an ongoing issue going on with the accreditation status of the college. Back in September at the board meeting, I addressed the board and I asked if we were going to be informed about when the visit was going to be. I was told that by President Verdeen that we would be informed about this by media and all kinds of other avenues of paper, website, and we were never notified. The school was never notified. None of the students, as far as I know of, none of the instructors, nobody was notified when they were coming. They came in October. And the only reason why I know they came in October, because a lot of us saw the parking lots, the parking slots where the board members park, said that it was for the accreditation visit. And yet, we were still not notified about this. So, when I came to the December 13th question and answer, I asked this question, why weren't we notified? And the answer was we were. But yet, there was no proof that we have been notified of their visit. We were not notified of anything. Yet, there were many third-party comments that needed to be addressed. In fact, one of them was for the veterans, for that clinic that has never been built. And there's still that $400,000 that's sitting. It has not been returned to the donors, and nothing's been done about it. That issue was not addressed either, and neither were other third-party comments. And that was what the whole issue was. And when I asked about this, I was told that there were students that did meet with the accreditation team. Well, who are the students? Who are they? What did they talk about? This has never been disclosed. And yet, there are many people who did third-party comments. This is something of an ethics issue because there's some honesty, lack of honesty not going on here. And this is something that the school needs to address because I believe one of the things that what the school was put on probation for was ethics. This is not ethical. The students need to be informed. This needs to be put out to the students and to the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Castro.
No further public comment?
No further public comments.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes.
Move approval of the minutes?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous in favor. Consent items. Consent item number 1, approval of S, T, and B consent items. Does any trustee have a request to go over these in separately?
S, I, and B.
Oh, SI.
Yeah.
All right.
Motion to approve the consent calendar?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, excuse me. Student trustee
Aye.
advisory? Trustees?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Passes unanimously. So that was,
So far, we've approved S, I, and B
Yes,
consent items.
okay.
Okay.
Consent items 2, approve student travel and National Society of Black Engineers Conference, Kansas City, Missouri. That's,
Now we have to approve consent items P.
we just did S, I, and B.
Now we go to P.
Personnel.
Yeah.
So it doesn't indicate P here.
It is.
Item G, consent item
G
P.
consent item.
Okay,
personnel P.
we are still working out our,
We're right here now.
So I move approval of consent item G.
Second.
B. Yeah. Okay, consent item P.
P.
Does any trustee want to discuss any of these individually?
You have a motion?
We have a motion?
I move approval.
Second.
All in favor? Excuse me, no student trustee. This is a personnel, no student trustee advisory vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Action items A.
Okay, action items. H1, nomination, California Community College Trustees Board. You want to describe this?
Your item, this one, it's, that's where the board will be appointing, will be taking part in the election. You have the, maybe we have the list of candidates, and
May I, so this is the nomination by the colleges of any open positions at the Community College League for the trustees. However, since I already represent Pasadena, nobody else could submit their name from our board, but then the league will present a slate of those nominations that have been submitted, and then we'll vote on them in the April election, I believe.
Well, do we have any nominations then? We've already got a
We've already-
trustee who's on the
yeah,
board,
yeah.
so we can't have another one.
No.
We're only allowed to nominate from our own board.
on board.
Right.
Yeah, and we already have a member.
Right.
Yeah.
So we will just be waiting until April.
Correct.
Correct, okay, thank you. Action item H2, approve 2017-2018 non-resident tuition fee, education code section, et cetera.
Every year at this time, we do have to have the board approve the tuition for non-residents and that come to Pasadena City College. We usually receive the information from the state of California, from the chancellor's office, the third week of December, and we have a 1-month turnaround. And the way it works, I'm going to turn to Vice President Stoti to explain how the process works and how we derive the amount that we are charging.
Yeah, the education code requires that the board approve our non-resident fee by February 1st, as Dr. Verdian mentioned. The ed code also provides 7 different options of determining what we charge non-resident students on a per unit basis. One of the options is to use the statewide average, and how that's determined, the state calculates and compiles all the cost of all the different 113 community colleges in the system and determines what the average cost per unit is. And that's one option. So we can charge that fee, or we can determine what the actual fee is at Pasadena City College. Both costs are actually very close, and for the past 3 years, we've used the statewide average. So what we're recommending to you with this board item is to, consistent with the prior 2 years, to charge the statewide average, which is $234 per unit. We also survey nearby colleges to see what they're charging, just to make sure that we're not out of line to what other colleges are charging. And of the 14 colleges that responded to the survey, 11 of them will be charging the statewide average of $234 per unit. 2 are charging a higher fee, and 1 is charging a lower fee.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion? I have a couple of questions. So the 7 criteria or the options to calculate this, I read a memo, and
Right.
only 3 of them are really kind of viable, and the other 4 are sort of for special cases. Okay.
Right.
Now, we have before us now a recommendation to set a fee rate which is higher than the calculated cost we would have for PCC, but is equal to the statewide average.
That's correct.
Correct. And the total amount of additional revenue we would expect to receive by having the higher rate is about how much?
It's about $650,000
Yeah.
for 1 year.
Yeah, okay. And so we're charging the higher rate rather than the specific average for PCC, and that's what 11 of the 14 colleges around here also do.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
so we're doing the same sort of thing that they do, maximizing the revenue. Okay, and I think it's a good opportunity at this time to point out how important this line item is. This is probably going to generate $9 million or so.
It will. It will. The current year that we're fiscally in, it'll be about $9 million.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And if we keep up the same, well, this is the same rate, or is it a little bit higher?
It's a little bit higher than it was last
Okay,
year.
so we're going to be pushing toward $10 million on this line item. It's a particularly good line item in that we can spend the money any way we want, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. so-
And it really benefits all of our students, not just the non-resident students, because we're actually offering more classes that are open to our entire student population.
Yeah, it's about 6% or so of our total revenue, the way I calculate it, so it's a important line item. Okay, any other questions or discussion? Trustee Osterman.
We just went through a significant hiring increase that hasn't fully shown up on a full fiscal year of our expenses. And when we consider the statewide average, it's expensive coastal communities and less expensive inland communities, and we're more in that coastal area. And I guess the point that I'm trying to make, or the question I'm trying to ask, is did we consider trying to increase a little bit above the statewide average, especially given that our faculty costs will be going up in the future, and that hasn't really rippled through yet in the past calculations that you did?
That's a very good question. Actually, we can either charge the statewide average, which is $234, or the calculated average of our actual expenses, which is lower, slightly lower than the
okay.
234,
That's 217, I think?
about
Was it?
217.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, plus the capital outlay fee.
So our
the-
actual cost so far, at least historically, is slightly below the statewide
Slightly
average.
below the state.
Okay.
There is one option that allows us to charge based on what other states comparable to California are charging, but that would be significantly higher. That would be $425 per unit, and that really doesn't make sense to charge that much more when we survey the other colleges, and they're all charging the statewide average of $234.
So if we did that, we'd be driving away the
Would be-
out-of-state and
yeah.
some international students.
We would be pricing ourselves out of the market.
Thank you, Dr. Storti.
Sure.
Any additional comments or questions? Okay, we have a motion to accept student trustee.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you. Approval of additions to the
Well, this is a,
credit general education curriculum.
as usual, we do bring to the board for approval new curriculum, and in this case, I'm going to ask Dr. Juni to briefly tell us what we will be approving.
Thank you, Dr. Verdian. What's on your agenda tonight for curriculum actually is, it's not new curriculum. It is assigning approved courses to our general education requirement for our local degrees. So if a student is earning an associate degree or an AA or an AS, they have to meet certain general ed requirements, and one of those is basically a local education requirement, and so in that GE pattern, there are a number of areas where there are classes that will meet that particular area requirement. And so what this is doing is adding classes that are not yet part of that general education to those various areas. So they're not new classes, they're just being assigned. You're not approving new classes, you're just approving the assignment of classes to the various areas of our general education pattern.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Is there any discussion? Student trustee,
Aye.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimous.
Abstain. I'm abstaining.
One abstention. Mr. Martin. Thank you. Item H4, request for approval, CCCCO Strong Workforce Program Local Plan Fiscal Year 2016-17.
Well, members of the board, as you know, at the last board study session, we presented to you the overall strong workforce project for the state of California. And we do have to turn into the state, following your approval, our local plan. And that is due on January 31st. There is also a regional plan. Yesterday night, we received a draft copy of the regional plan from the regional group. And I have added that in your packet. Today we put a copy of that with the timeline that has been given by the regional group. The CEOs will be meeting tomorrow to take a look at the regional draft. Then they will be providing their feedback by this Friday, and the CEO group will be approving this on the last Friday of the month. But we will have to have our college plan, our district plan approved by the board. Today is probably the last day because we don't have another meeting until February. So I'm going to be asking Dr. Junior to say a few words before Dr. Sifoni gives you a brief presentation of what our plan looks like.
Thank you, Dr. Verdian. So as Dr. Verdian mentioned, at the last board meeting, we had a presentation that talked about career technical education, but also talked a little bit about the work that had been done at that point in putting together this plan. That work has continued. It involved quite a number of people across the campus in the career technical education areas, and Dr. Sifoni is going to give you just some highlights of that. There were approximately 25 submissions to that plan, and those were vetted and reviewed by a group that included administrators, faculty, and classified staff. And they basically scored and prioritized those, and then sat down for a fairly half a day meeting to determine which parts of or complete proposals would be part of the plan. And what kind of drove that conversation was the $1.44 million and the amount that each of those proposals was asking for to do what they were proposing. And so I believe, and Dr. Sifoni can correct me, but I believe of those 24 plans, 15 or 16 of them were partially or fully funded. So even though 1.44 is not a lot, we were able to spread it out fairly well. Remember from last month's proposal that what these are supposed to do is either increase enrollments and students that are involved in our career technical education programs, or improve the quality of those programs. And so there's quite a mix of that. There are a number of things that were funded that are wraparound and support all CTE programs, and then there are some very specific parts of the proposals that are very specific to certain areas. You received in your packet a more detailed explanation of those as compared to what Dr. Sifoni is going to present in the PowerPoint presentation. Both he and I welcome other questions that you might have after the presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Juni. Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Selvage, Dr. Verdi, and members of the community. My name is Dr. Rocky Sifoni. And when last we were here, we presented, in essence, a plan for a plan. And tonight we have a lot more concrete data to present to you on the Pasadena area community college districts, local allocation or local investment for the strong workforce plan. Tonight's presentation will consist of an overview of our timeline to preparation, and our timeline to arriving at this evening's meeting, an overview of the regional projects that involve Pasadena City College. And as Dr. Verdian mentioned, these are not finalized until the CEOs have reviewed them and the CEOs have voted on them for the LAOC Regional Consortium. The third item, an overview of our strong work Dr. Juni mentioned, a lot more detail contained in your board packet, and a minute of some future implications. Our local share, as was mentioned, $1.44 million of the $200 million that were approved by the trailer bill earlier in this year for fiscal year 2016-2017. As you could see, we go from the Board of Governors approval date in September, a fairly intensive orientation and planning period that took place here locally at the college, consisting of a large group of faculty, staff, and management. We had our study session last month. As Dr. Juni mentioned, a collegial evaluation of proposals, the proposals being vetted out. And brings us to tonight to the report on the actual use of the funds as proposed and planned through the local share template system. District certification and submission of the local share template will take place no later than January the 31st. Again, just an overview of our regional plan involvement. These are collaborative projects. First, where PCC has leadership or will be the fiscal lead, if in fact approved by the CEOs. The San Gabriel Valley Cooperative Workforce Work Experience Education Partnership, mainly having to do with internship development amongst and between 4 or 5 community college districts here in the San Gabriel Valley, and the LA Bioscience Collaborative Project. A couple of across all regional consortium projects that involve all 19 colleges in Los Angeles County. And where PCC actually does have a partnership but not a leadership role, we heretofore do not know what our regional allocation, a portion of the regional allocation will be. But we are involved in a number of, and a variety of partnership programs that encompass global trade and logistics, regional net lab, hub, graphic design, CTE readiness, and an entire list there that you can peruse. Now we get to our local planning projects by priority sector. As Dr. Juni mentioned, we have a cross-all or wraparound category for college-wide support, which consists of career counseling, job developer, CTE curriculum support. All of these on this list point directly to any one or a couple of the 25 recommendations that were made by the Strong Workforce Task Force last year and early this year. Our local plan projects by priority sector. If you recall, during our study session, one of the things that I introduced to you were all 11 of our priority employment sectors here in Los Angeles County. We were fortunate enough to be able to fund programs in most of them as they applied to programs directly affecting PCC students. You see programs in advanced manufacturing and technology sector, the advanced transportation sector, the energy efficiency, utilities, and construction sector, the health sciences sector, the information and communication technologies sector, the biotech and life sciences sector, and the small business and entrepreneurship sector. And by the way, this particular sector is really across all curriculum service that will be eventually provided and scaled up to service CTE across the curriculum. Some implications for future planning. I think the first implication has to be assessing the progress and the outcomes of this initial strong workforce program investment. As you well know, this was legislated into Ed Code, part of the statute, so this is an ongoing funding program that is based specifically on the outcomes that were outlined by the Board of Governors' Strong Workforce Task Force. The majority of the rest of the implications for future strong workforce planning address multiple entry and multiple exit points for people coming and going in the workforce and utilizing colleges like Pasadena City College as their training focus. And so with that, I will conclude and ask you if you have any specific questions for Dr. Junia and myself.
If I may add, you will also see the budget in your document that you receive in board docs. We have the budget attached to that, and there was also, as Dr. Juni said, a more in-depth description of each of the sectors.
Yes, 2 appendices.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve this recommendation?
Second.
Okay, discussion?
So, first of all, I want to say how pleased I am to see what these recommendations and that we're able to fund some really great sectors here. So I can tell a lot of work went in. Just kudos to you. This is so great to see this. One of the questions I do have, though, is just even in talking to some of the veterans, some of them, I was kind of talking up this program and how excited they should be about this. And they asked, well, will they get credit for any of their work experience if they go into one of these CTE pathways? So do we have that as one of credit for experience so that they can get into the pathway and completion much more quickly?
Dr. Juni, where are we with that?
That's a good question. It's actually, we are working on that, not as part of this project. I am working with a group of people in determining how Pasadena City College is going to be providing credit to veterans for various experiences in their service. There's a lot of work that's being done statewide. We're looking at those models. We're looking at examples from other colleges, and so our hope is that we'll make good progress on that during the spring, so that we can start providing credit. Veterans already do get some elective credit for their experience, so we're trying to expand that and make it more relevant to like career technical education, and so we are working on that, but that's a different project not associated with this funding.
I hope to see that we might offer that more readily to not just even to the veterans, just to our students in general, because I think that there's a lot of people in our community who want to come back just to train and kind of re-up their skills, and so it would be, I think, a good incentive for them. And I guess if we're doing the credit to work experience, I don't know if you can even tell, when do you think that you will start to see an impact to the job opportunity fulfillment in our area?
That It's a good question, but a very hard one to answer, because at this point, I can't give you specific experience that will lead to specific courses. So, and that will involve a lot of work of faculty within specific areas to be able to evaluate the sort of experience that a veteran has experienced in their service, and then link that to our courses. Part of the problem that has occurred in the past is that they have an experience that is part of what's in a class, but it's not the entire part of that class or the entire content of that class. And so in doing those evaluations, some of what might need to happen is the development of curriculum that we don't have now, so splitting classes up into smaller pieces so that they could actually get, you know, if you take a class that's about welding or something of that nature and splitting it into 2 or 3 parts because their experience is, you know, a third of it or half of it, and so we would need to look at that, work with faculty to develop those new classes. And as we know, curriculum takes a while. So, you know, the hope is that we can start expanding the type of credit we give as early as fall, and then have a plan and a path to build upon that, so that we can start developing better curriculum and better crossover between military experience and credit, but that may take as much as another year to be able to develop that curriculum.
So let me just follow up on that a little bit. So one of the things that we talked about in WEDPAC was the importance of agility in developing and getting curriculum approved, so that because technology is pushing changes so quickly throughout industry, there has to be some agility in being able to adjust the curriculum. So we're no longer in the days where you can take a year to 2 years to approve your curriculum, develop and approve your curriculum. So part of that, I think, that we envision when we talk at the state level is how we bring industry to the table to help drive that change. So how will we do that here as part of our own regional effort?
So that's actually another project, and you're right. Statewide, there has been great concern, especially in career technical education, about the length of time it takes to get new curriculum in place. And there's quite a bit of work coming out of the Chancellor's Office that's looking at that. Through the IEPI division of the Chancellor's Office, there are resources that are being made available. There's actually teams that are going to various colleges to look at their curriculum process and provide their input in ways that we could improve curriculum and the curriculum process, and most importantly, the timeline that it takes. I am currently working with the co-chairs of the C&I committee and others to evaluate our curriculum process with that intent of finding ways to accelerate it. We had a meeting today where we were talking about timelines and how we might do that. And so there is quite a bit of effort directed at that. And career technical education is probably the place where it has the most dramatic effect, because if it takes 2 years to approve new curriculum, it's probably out of date as soon as it's approved. And so we are looking at that to try to find ways that we can accelerate that, and we're utilizing the resources of both the Statewide Academic Senate to do that, as well as the Chancellor's Office.
If I may add something here, Dr. Sifoni has been working in previous capacity on what we call the modular approach to CTE curriculum. And whatever it is, as Dr. Juni was saying, sometimes you have people who come here who have mastered one of the 2 or 3 modules required for a course. So that's one thing we could be looking at, and I know Dr. Sifoni has worked on that a lot. We could be working with Dr. Juni, Dr. Sifoni, and the Curriculum Committee through the Academic Senate on figuring out a way, especially for CTE, where this is an easier approach, to modularize some of the curriculum to address the changing needs of the career technical world.
You know, and I just want to point out that when I asked this question when in WEDPAC, when we first started the task force, it was actually Aspen Institute who was the one who talked about really modularizing and making these shorter term, I guess, shorter course completions to get to the goal, and that's how they perceived that we would be able to be much more agile in getting this through. But, so I just want to reiterate once again, and I know Dr. Safoni and Dr. Juni know this, that I think it's really important that we also make sure that industry is brought to the table, because industry is really who we're serving. Our students are our product, and what the education we give them, you know, is the key for them to get into industry and to get those good jobs. So, but I just want to give kudos to you, and also to say how pleased I was to see that we were putting in good counseling resources, because I think it's that counseling resource that has to be able to adjust quickly and be able to give that guidance to our students so that they can adjust their course. Thank you very much for the work you did.
Trustee Hilsman and then Trustee Osterling.
Yes. I also add my thanks to you, Dr. Safoni, on the work you've done. Unfortunately, I was out of the country and wasn't able to attend the study session, so forgive me if some of my questions are redundant. I have a particular interest that predates my election to the board, and that is in the area, and I want to direct you to the priority sector and the local plan projects. The research that I've looked at says that in the general arts-related fields, which includes everything from movies and film that we are familiar with to video gaming, fashion, design. You know, when a car company when Tesla's here, they're using design, and so the statistics I've seen is that a third of the jobs in Southern California are arts or arts-related. And a lot of those are going to be mid-skill level jobs. My sense is that graduates of a 2-year program in visual arts or design or some of the other animation, some of these other areas are just as qualified as a graduate of the Art Center, for example, to go in and to do mid-skill level kind of jobs. I think the missing piece is as Trustee Waugh was saying, we don't have a sense of, I mean, I've worked in this field and I don't have a sense of what the industry needs are for those particular kinds of jobs. So it's, again, to repeat, the communication between the industry and the college, not just in terms of curriculum, but because I think a lot of the courses that we have are already suitable for these jobs. We just are not, we haven't really targeted them. So I was a little disappointed to see that we have the general information and communication technologies, but we really haven't looked at, in what I've seen here, we haven't looked at that broad area of arts that includes, as I said, a number of different very important and growing industries. So what can we do about that?
Dr. Juni has an answer for you.
So that's a great question, and I think it's important for the board to realize that this year the planning that had to be done for this was really short. And things had to work really quickly. And so we had a lot of data that was looking at the needs of our community in these various sectors. And what you're seeing in this proposal are based on programs that we have right now. And so the next round of planning for the next year's funding, which will start tomorrow, is to also start looking at ways that programs that we might not have, or programs that might be kind of a combination of various things that will take a little bit more time to do, but are necessary to serve our community. And so the type of program that you're talking about now is where we need to be focusing when we have more time, and so it will be part of the planning for next year, is looking at areas where we don't have degrees and certificates, we don't have the things we need, and what would we need to develop those as we move into the future to better support both our students and what they want, but also support our community and industry and business. And I think it is also important in regard to the questions Trustee Waugh had and your statement about involving industry. One of of the items you approved earlier in regard to the contract was to extend a contract on someone who's been working with our career technical education programs to better utilize their advisory committees and improve the membership of those advisory committees so that we have that information and we are including the industry and the businesses in our area so that we can better serve their needs. And so we are working on that. It's not part of this proposal just because we didn't have enough time to do all the data analysis and planning that we needed to do. But you should expect to see more of that sort of program being developed in the future for future years of funding.
Yeah, that's terrific. I would just say that we have on this board and in the community a large network of people that can help with this. And, you know, I think you can certainly call on trustees or other people in the PCC Foundation, for example, to help build that kind of advisory board, which is going to be critical. The other thing that's great about it is that it can provide ultimately internships, which is a great way, the best way, really, for students to get started on their careers. So congratulations, thanks on that.
Trustee Osterling?
Similar question, drilling down to a different sector, energy efficiency, utilities, and construction. And I see we have a program in construction inspection, and it's a niche, and we're one of the very few people that are serving it. But do we have any objective to expand into the construction industry and energy efficiency more broadly? And I'm talking about mid-skill jobs, not the low-skill jobs in the construction industry. The construction industry nationwide is about 10% of our overall economy, and it's a similar percentage here locally, and I think that we could be serving that industry and providing mid-skill career technical education.
I'll echo what Dr. Junior just mentioned in his response. This is our first crack at this, and some low-hanging fruit, so to speak, with respect to closing the supply and demand gap, which was above and beyond the paramount metric that we would be measured against when submitting this template. We have a couple of programs that do exist in their infancy right now here at Pasadena City College. One of them has been a photovoltaic program. And we'd like to see that program grow. We'd like to see that program flourish. And in fact, one of the local sector proposals is an across all sector for engineering and technology. So electricity, electronics, as well as engineering, all of which touch some of the construction occupations that you allude to, will receive some enhancement through this first round. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions or discussion? I'd just like to mention that when this was brought up a few months ago, it was a pretty ambitious timeline, and I'm gratified to see looks like we're ready for whatever comes down on this. The question that I have relates to when PCC will know how much money we get for the various things that we might be doing. That's going to be after the 1st of February, is that correct?
Well, these funds are here. They are at our disposal.
Oh, they're here at PCC
Yes, sir.
now?
Right,
1.44 million.
1.44 million
Yeah.
Okay. Is there going to be any more?
annually, yes.
Okay, next year. Okay, got it. Okay.
There will be this is an ongoing funded project of the state. So PCC will be receiving funds every year for this. We have 3 years to spend each year's allocation, so we don't actually have to spend this 1.44 million this year. And some of the proposals actually they're not this is over a 2 or 3 year allocation to those. We anticipate that next year's funding will be similar in size, although because the metrics being used for next year are a little bit different, there could be some adjustments. And so at this point, we don't know whether we'll go up or down from that standpoint, but we would expect it will still be fairly similar in that, and we will have to be prepared to adjust for either an increase or a decrease in that funding based on what we propose. And as we've said, there's lots of different things that are to come as we have more time to plan. And so, I'm very excited about these fundings because I think it is something that will greatly benefit some of our current programs and will also give us the opportunity to look into the idea of expanding into other areas.
And we will know about the amount for next year, so we won't have more than 1.4 million until we hear about what is in store for us next year.
Yeah, and I don't know exactly when we'll hear that. I mean, it looks like Trustee Wah might have something on that, but I would imagine that it will not be that far into the future because, in fact, we need to start planning for next year's, and so the state will probably let us know so we know, what all we should be looking at in regard to the magnitude of that allocation.
And this 1.4 is not now in the budget. This is
You approved it in the budget, was it, I don't know if it was either last board meeting or the meeting before that. And
okay.
so-
Okay.
Right, it was in December. So you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe our next year funding, though, is going to be very heavily performance-based, so it's based on the goals that you have set and indicated will be your success factors. So I think it's important to report back to the trustees on what your goals are and how close we are to hitting that goal, because that will depend on then our next year's funding.
We will definitely get this to the board, and as you were saying, 1/6 of the funding will be based on performance, so.
Well, kind of another part is as well, because one part of the 1/6 is based on basically students getting jobs after they finish these programs, and the expectation is they get that job within 30 days of graduation, and they keep that job for at least 90 days. Our students are already doing that, and we just haven't been tracking that, so it'll be interesting to see where we are already and can we increase that. The other part that is, you could say, to a certain extent, is also performance-based. It's the amount of FTS that we generate from CTE programs. And at the start of this program, the state basically has taken a baseline. They know how much CTE-driven FTS that each college has produced, and the expectation is you won't go down, you will just go up. And so that also is important, where we need to drive increases in enrollment in our very CTE programs so that we can get more money based on the FTS that we generate. The others have to do with unemployment in our area, so we have no control over that, and the jobs that are available. So those are factors that we don't control, and so, but the FTS and the job placement, we do have some control over.
So just to reiterate something I had said at the last meeting, and I encourage us to look at it again, is that it would be nice to have a primer on using the launch board so that the trustees can go through a session, much like we did with board docs, to learn how to use the launch board so that we can track some of this success, which I think is really good. And the other thing for the trustees to know is, we're very fortunate that our college, Dr. Verdian and his team were able to work and get this this plan through. There were some colleges who did not get an allocation for CTE because they didn't see that there was a need so much for investment in the CTE. So we're in a good area where we have a lot of opportunities in our sector, and I think the team worked really hard to put this together.
Thank you. Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second to approve this recommendation. All in favor? Oh, excuse me. Student trustee advisory. Trustees, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes unanimously. Information item, Board of Trustees, committees, and representatives.
In your packet, you have the committee list as put together by Board President Dr. Selvage.
Right. The Assignments are as follows: Community College League of California, PCC's representative, Trustee Wah. Los Angeles County Committee on School District Organization, Trustee Hilsman. Los Angeles County School Trustees Association, Trustee Osterling. PCC Foundation Representative, Trustee Hilsman. PCC Measure P Representative, Trustee Wah. President's Advisory Council on Education Facilities Master Plan, Trustees Martin, Osterling, and Selvage. Accreditation Board Policy Review, Trustee Fellow Chair, Trustee Brown, and Trustee Wah, and Student Trustee members. Budget and Audit, Trustee Selvage Chair, Trustee Martin, and Trustee Osterling members. KPCC Oversight, Trustee Selvage Chair, Trustees Fellow and Hilsman members. Legislative Advocacy, Trustee Wah Chair, Trustee Hilsman, Osterling, and Student Trustee members. The next item under information is the Superintendent President's Report.
Well, as this is the first meeting of the year, I would like to wish the community, the board members, and everybody a happy new year, and we're looking forward to a lot of good news this year. As you know, our winter term is well underway, and we are pleased to see students roaming our halls and filling up our classrooms. This winter intersession, we are offering 525 sections, and we are currently at 87% capacity, and we have 11,429 unduplicated head count. Our spring semester is looking very strong also, and as you know, we are offering 2,614 sections this spring. Currently, we are at 80% capacity, and we still have another 6 weeks to go, and we currently have 22,461 unduplicated head count, which is excellent, and I want to thank our faculty, our staff, and the hard work of Dr. Juni and the deans and Dr. Olivo to make this happen. As you know, the governor last week released the budget blueprint, and I know that Trustee Martin and Dr. Story, as well as several of our staff members, were in Sacramento today for the ACA budget workshop. Some good news for us in that budget. We have growth, we have COLA, and the most important one for our district is of the Proposition 51 funded projects, listed right there, number one project is Pasadena City College, Building U. So we're looking forward. The mere fact that it is in the budget gives us an indication that perhaps the governor will be moving forward with that, and we should be working on making this a reality. And we know that Dr. Sroti is putting the teams together, and Dr. Foster is working and appointing the faculty on that committee to make sure that we have the planning process underway for Building U, and we have everything else in process for us to be working with the board on the selection of architects and making this project happen very quickly. Before the winter break, PCC began offering nutritious meals through the new Lancer Pantry, a food bank that we host on campus to help students that are experiencing food insecurity. And we are doing very well in that. And that committee draws faculty from multiple areas. We have the student health services involved, student services, the library, the foundation, and many of the college programs are helping to make this a success. Our faculty have been working very hard also. We have chemistry professor Jillian Blatty, who has an article that will be coming out in the Journal of Chemical Education, and that article is entitled Colorful and Creative Chemistry, Making Simple, Sustainable Paints with Natural Pigments and Binders. And I know we all like paints. At some point in time, we all be painting something, and this should be an interesting article for all of us to read. Our financial aid office on Saturday 4th will be hosting another installment of the successful Cash for College seminars we have held in previous years. Multilingual financial aid staff will be on hand to answer questions about paying for college and to help families complete the California dreams and everything, all the dreams that this country can make true for our students. We are also pleased to have two of our dental assisting faculty named to serve on national boards. We have Denise Romero and Lori Gallardi. Both of them will be serving at the national level. Our nursing students have been invited again to participate at Care Harbor LA later this month. And we know, just as last year, they will do a wonderful job. And as you know, the next 3 weeks will be very important weeks for us. We will be sending faculty and staff and students to Sacramento for the legislative week. And we will also have administrators and staff in Washington. And this year, our students will not be able to join us in Washington because they all have finals that week, right? And we will also be sending a team to Washington for the Aspen program, and our team will comprise of faculty member Stephanie Fleming, Dr. Olivo, Dr. Selvage, and myself. And we look forward to bringing a lot of good news to the college. And once more, let's have a Happy New Year and looking forward to some wonderful news at Pasadena City College for this year. Thank you. This concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Dr. Verdian. Announcements by shared governance representatives, starting with Classified Senate.
Nothing to report this evening.
Thank you. And Management Association?
I don't have a report per se, but I do want to thank the board and the college and Dr. Verdian for the support that has been shown for the MA and our conference funding. And it's a great opportunity for our leadership managers to develop their skills and to reach out to the larger community and also to learn a great deal about how to do their jobs better. So I do want to express that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Academic Senate.
I have nothing to report, but Happy New Year. Good to see everyone.
Thank you. Now, do we have any announcements? Yeah. Do we have any announcements or comments by the trustees, starting with the student trustee?
I don't have any comments for myself. However, President Russo from the Associated Students could not make it this evening, and she asked me to report on her behalf. On behalf of the Associated Students, I would like to read a resolution which we adopted at the end of November. And this resolution is titled, "The Associated Students of Pasadena City College in support of providing a safe environment for students in distress." And I will be reading the text. It's quite short. Whereas Associated Students of Pasadena City College represents all students, regardless of their national origin, religion, age, gender identity, gender expression, race or ethnicity, color, medical condition, genetic information, ancestry, sexual orientation, physical or mental ability, marital status, parental status, citizenship status, military or veteran status. Whereas Associated Students seeks to maintain and advance Pasadena City College's mission to provide an equitable learning environment and to eliminate the achievement gaps for all students. Whereas Associated Students recognizes the need to provide increased support for students in distress. Therefore, Associated Students will take all steps necessary to provide an inclusive, safe space for students to communicate and express their concerns. Therefore, Associated Students will assist Pasadena City College in providing increased publicity regarding the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, a federal law created to protect the privacy of student education records and establish the rights of students to inspect and review their education records. Therefore, Associated Students will continue to fight for the rights of students to pursue their educational goals. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Brown?
No report.
Trustee Hilsman?
I have nothing to report, but I just want to commend the Associated Students for that. I was concerned today to see that the nominee for the Education Secretary would not commit to protecting the rights of disabled students, those who need financial assistance. In certain areas have to sign a waiver of disability rights. So I think it's very important, particularly that our students assure the rights of all of our students, whatever their situation or condition or their background. Thank you.
Trustee Fellow.
Yes, I'd like to adjourn this evening in memory of Dr. Charles Reed, who was the retired chancellor of the California State University Systems, and I think one of the best chancellors we ever had. And he was also chancellor of the Florida State University System, and then chief of staff for Senator Lindsey Graham. And a great friend of my wife, who was his spokesperson as long as he was chancellor, and a good friend of mine. He shall surely be missed, and a great educator. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Osterling.
Happy New Year, no report.
Trustee Martin.
As was mentioned, I attended with Dr. Storti the ACA-ACBO budget workshop. Thought it was very informative. I learned a lot. I appreciated having a personal tutor that couldn't get away from me for 2 plane flights to answer my questions and help my education of PCC finance. But in particular, what I thought was interesting that you can't get in the synopsis from either Dr. Verdian sent a synopsis of the budget was the interaction between the many CBOs and the panel. And the panel consisted of a member from the Governor's Office, the Department of Finance. Panel had a representative from the Legislative Analysis Office for the legislature, the VP of Finance for the California Community College Systems, Mario Rodriguez, and then a member from the ACBO board who is the Associate Chancellor Vice President for San Diego, who was an extremely Bonnie Dowd, who represented us extremely well. But there was an hour or so where anyone who wanted to could express concerns to this panel, and the governor's representative, of course, always got the first shots. I mean, they were looking at her when they were addressing many of the issues. So as was mentioned, several speakers were upset that only 5 projects were funded so far. We, of course, were not one of those speakers. And so there is a little bit of envy in there. Why did those 5 get funded and all the others, I think there's 39 total, have not? And again, the representative from the governor's office, as you all know, they're worried about the total indebtedness of the state, et cetera. I did have an opportunity to express our concern about the CalPERS STRS situation. It was brought up in many of the conversations, obviously not just in my questioning. So I wish it was a little more prevalent as we look at the magnitude, but the main focus of this was as the documentation that we've been provided in this year's governor's proposal. So in general, I thought that exchange, and to see that exchange and to see what is on the minds of so many other districts was a value added that you can't just get in the information the governor is providing us. So I thought I'd share some of that.
Trustee Wah.
Well, for those of you I won't see in Sacramento, I want to wish you an early happy Chinese New Year. This is the year of the rooster, so if you're returning an age that is divisible by 12, this is your year. So happy Lunar New Year.
Thank you. I have a couple of remarks to make. First of all, we have a basketball game going on right now over here in the gym. This is the conference opener for the women's basketball. The men had a game at 5 o'clock, and I don't know how that turned out. The women's game started at 7, so if anybody's following on their phone, give us an update. And I notice it's raining, so it'd be kind of a challenge to run over there. Next game is January 20th at Mount Sac, 5 and 7 p.m., men's and women's. The Pasadena City College is going to be honored at the to the community in the 9th Annual Red, Black, and Green Honors Dinner. At that dinner, we have several members of PCC who are going to be recognized. This is the 2017 Black History Celebration and Planning Commission Service Award. Our own trustee, Berlinda Brown. Dr. Robert Bell. Gina Lopez. Excuse me. Dr. Paul Price. Ibrahim Narim. Joe Perone. I think he's over there at the gym right now, you know, helping our women defeat Trade Tech tonight. And Beverly Tate. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Christopher West. I'd also like to extend my gratitude to Dr. Verdian and Kyle Luck, our band's director, who allowed me to march in the Rose Parade for the first time in my life alongside our band. Well, we walked, I guess. They marched, we walked. But it was great, and there was no band that looked better or sounded better than our band. We had the Penn State band, a couple, one float ahead of us. We had the SC band, which was better than the Penn State band. One float behind us, but they weren't quite as good as the the PCC band. Sorry. It was a lot of fun, and the spectators rose and applauded when our band went by playing 76 trombones. I mean, that's a winner all the way around. So my gratitude to Carl Luck for everything he did to make us look really, really good out there and at the Band Fest despite the rain. One other thing I'd like to mention, sort of along the lines of an announcement that Trustee Fellow made. A couple of days ago, Kevin Starr died. He was 76 years old, died of a heart attack up in the Bay Area. I'd known him since the 1990s when he had a faculty position down at SC in the planning school. I was also a part-time faculty member down there. There was nobody in California that knows more about California history. There is nobody who understood more about California history than Kevin Starr. He's got a series of books, and I strongly recommend. I knew him also because of his involvement with the libraries. I'm involved with the libraries here in the city of Pasadena. And he was a big supporter of libraries. He was state librarian under 2 or 3 governors. But that's a huge loss. If you ever want to know about California history, check out his series of books on history of California. I think that is all of my comments. Proposed future agenda items. Any trustees have any? I guess not.
The future,
Meeting dates?
Meeting dates, number 2.
Proposed future item would be the lunch board, so a primer maybe for the trustees on a lunch board?
Yes, we will do a repeat of that presentation. Right. The launch board, how to work with the launch board, yes. Okay. And meeting dates?
Yeah. Okay. There was a question about whether or not we needed to have two meetings in.
We have 2 meetings scheduled, if you look at your calendar, on February 22nd and March 1st. We were going to ask, since those are 7 days apart, we were going to ask that we cancel the February 22nd board meeting, and this will also be the second day of school, I believe, right? Because we start on the 21st, right? The 20th is a holiday. We start on the 21st, and that's the second day of school, and faculty and staff will be very busy with accommodating students in the evening and so on. And if we could just cancel the February 22nd and have the March 1st meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Advisory vote?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes unanimously. So our next meeting will be February 1st. The meeting after that will be March 1st,
yes.
followed by March 22nd.
Yes.
Okay, I think that is all of our items. And we had one recommendation for a future agenda item, from Trustee Wah. You had the suggestion for agenda item?
Right, so that was the launch board.
The launch board, we will have that, yes.
Okay. Thank you. With no further agenda items, this meeting's adjourned.